I'm a big fan of the combination of trumpet and flute in music of any genre, and I'm not the only one. Heaps of composers and arrangers use this magical combo to amazing effect, and in this video I'm going to demonstrate some of the ways this can work. I've had some of my trumpet and flute friends play a heap of different versions of a phrase I wrote, so you can hear how great it sounds, and hopefully be inspired to use this brilliant combo in your own writing. Okay, let's start with one flute and one trumpet. Most commonly this combination is seen with the flute an octave higher than the trumpet, as the flute's natural range is somewhat higher than the trumpet's. Stravinsky does this in Petrushka. It's a nice combination, because you can hear both clearly and they blend nicely. Here's what it sounds like in my example. In Ravel's Bolero, he uses a muted trumpet with a flute. The various mutes of the trumpet can change the sound quite dramatically, so my awesome trumpet player Frederick has recorded all of these parts with various mutes as well. Here is the combination in Bolero with a muted trumpet and flute an octave above. Again, you can hear each part distinctly, but the flute adds a nice cap to the trumpet sound. Here it is in my example with a straight mute, which is the same mute used in the Bolero example. This same combination can be found in a jazz setting in Sammy Nestico's awesome swinging chart, Hey Burner. And here it is with the trumpet with a cup mute. A cup mute has a smoother, more papery soft sound than the straight mute, and less of a trebly sound, so it can be a very nice smooth sound when paired with the flute in octaves. And now for the harmon mute. This is a more jazzy sound that was well utilised by Gil Evans and other arrangers. When used in the mid and higher range, the harmon mute has a very pinched, trebly sound that can be very expressive. It sounds especially good when playing tight chords with flutes, as we'll hear later in the video. Before I move on to flute and trumpet in unison, I'll just add that it's quite common in louder tutti orchestral passages for the flutes to play in octaves with the trumpets as well. Here is an example from Ravel's Orchestration of Pitches at an Exhibition, the end of the promenade. This combination is used a lot less in classical music, as the trumpet would generally outweigh the flute in a unison passage. As these parts were recorded separately, it's easy for me to adjust the volume of each part to suit. If the trumpet were in its mid-range and marked softly, it could be done though. Here is what it sounds like with flute and trumpet in unison. It's a nice blend, isn't it? It's more common to see the muted trumpet and flute in unison, as the balance is better, especially with the harm and mute in jazz music. Here's a beautiful texture with harm and muted trumpets and flutes in unison from Here Come the Honeyman from Miles and Gill's Porgy and Bess album. Here's what it sounds like isolated with my melody. And here it is with a cup mute. And straight mute. I also harmonized the melody in 4-part close harmony. Here's what it looks like. If you want to know how I came up with the harmony, check out a few of my earlier videos where I go over my techniques. So let's hear the 4-part harmony with flutes an octave higher than the open trumpets, and I'll leave the bass in there. That's nice, isn't it? And now with the harm and muted trumpets. It's such a colourful combination. I should mention that the low notes with trumpet mutes don't always sound that good, but I wanted to make sure the melody had enough range so you could hear the tone quality of each of these examples throughout a decent range of the instruments. Something I've heard Gil Evans do a lot is play with the octave of the flutes to adjust the amount of flute to muted trumpet ratio. In Bess You Is My Woman Now from the same Porgy and Bess album comes these two examples. We have an E flat minor 9 chord, there's an E flat in the bass, and a G minor 9 chord, there's a G in the bass, voiced in a couple of different ways. The first one is more flute focused, with all 3 flutes above the harm and muted trumpets, and in the second example, the flutes are tucked inside the trumpet voicing. Isn't that marvelous? You can play with the texture just by changing the octave. So let's try that out. In this example, I'll have the trumpets with their harm and mutes in, and the flutes playing the harmony up an octave with the melody in the original octave. Isn't that sublime? And now let's tuck 3 flutes inside the muted trumpets. The bottom 2 flute parts are played by alto flutes. In an acoustic situation, you'd need to consider balance very carefully for a combination like this. Sounds good, doesn't it? You can go as far as your imagination will let you, really. In Blues for Pablo, from Miles Ahead, Gil sometimes uses open and muted trumpets in combination with flutes. Let's try trumpets open with a Harmon muted trumpet doubling the melody, and flutes 1 and 2 can play the melody and first harmony part in the lower octave. Wow, the colour and the way the muted trumpet part brings an edge to the melody is so nice. Here's the same example, except the open trumpets are now cup muted. This would be a better balance in an acoustic situation. Are you enjoying this as much as I am? The good news is that I plan on recording more instruments and adding them to this phrase so I can make more orchestration videos. Okay, back to flutes and trumpets. Now the parts don't have to be doubled, of course. On some arrangements, Gil places the flutes above the muted trumpets on different pitches. Let's try that out. Let's have flutes 1 and 2 playing the melody and first harmony part an octave higher than 2 trumpets on the third and fourth harmony part. Let's swap it around now, with open trumpets on melody and first harmony part, and flutes on harmony 3 and 4 an octave higher. That one seems a little less successful to me. I think it brings attention to some of the inner intervals of the harmony, which distracts from the melody slightly. If I add the melody back an octave higher with the flute, it comes right again, as our ear tends to hear the highest pitch. Okay, one more example with non-doubled parts, and then on to some other options if you only have 1 or 2 flutes. Let's try melody and the third harmony part an octave up, and trumpets on harmony parts 1 and 2. It's okay, but again I think these examples highlight some of the intervals inside the chords, like these minor and major seconds. Filling out the rest of the chord with the flutes. Or the trumpets tends to help smoothen it out. Now it's not always possible to have 4 flutes, of course, but the good news is that with 1 or 2 flutes above the trumpets, a lot of colour is added already, and it can give the impression of more flutes being present. Here are the 4 trumpets in harmony, with 1 flute an octave higher. It sounds good, doesn't it? And now with 2 flutes on the upper 2 parts an octave higher. I think this effect is exacerbated when the trumpets have a nice trebly mute on, such as the Harmon mute. Gil does this in New Rumba. And here it is with my example. Having one flute on one of the harmony parts would work as well, and gives an effect of a harmonic above the melody. As we heard before, if one of the sets of instruments has the melody and harmonies, in this case the trumpets, it tends to allow for harmony parts in other instruments to work better. So here is the first harmony part an octave higher in the flute, and the open trumpets below. And I'll add the bass back in. That's a nice effect, isn't it? Let's try it again with the second harmony part in cup muted trumpets. And finally, let's try it with straight muted trumpets and the first harmony part an octave higher on the flute. Well, I hope you found that as interesting as I did. It's been great playing with all of the different combinations. Let me know if there's a combination you'd really like to hear, or what your favourite one was. Thank you so much to the players, Hannah, Frederick and Gabriel, for playing these parts for me. I really appreciate it. You can support me by clicking on my Ko-fi link in the description. There are various PDFs for sale. Thanks.